All right. Well, once again, I'm Command Sergeant Major retired Dave Eustace with Military Recruiting Experts, and I'm here with Staff Sergeant Lawson from the great state of Kentucky, Chiefs 54 in 2020, and we're going to talk about, how you do your business. And just to get started, can you tell me your guard recruiting story?
Well, my experience is kind of beyond the guard, but I've been in recruiting for 2 years, working into my third year right now. So I was Rookie of the Year the previous year and Directors 54 in 2020. And my experience comes from I used to be a prior service enlisted active duty Marine for 8.5 years.
Nice.
Got out for 30 days, missed the camaraderie. I joined the National Guard back in 2001. Did that for 3 years, thought I knew best and was going to open a business with my husband, and realized working with your husband is probably not the smartest option in life. So after being out for 13 years, I came back in 2017. So I had a 13-year break in service. When I came back in, I was my recruiter's first prior service over 40, and it took a little bit to get me back in. So throughout the time, I learned a lot about what the National Guard does and how much we benefit others. And so I was like, I want to do your job. I want your job. And so honestly, I literally probably backfilled my recruiter at the long end of the day because I'm in the area that he used to recruit.
Wow.
Geographically. He is now back in his hometown area, so he's still recruiting as well. But now that I'm, older than most people, and then especially in this field, I think that my background helps me connect to people. So, because I know what they would have felt like then, I know what I've been through, and I share my story a lot. It's easy for me to tell Marines that are getting out of the Marine Corps or have been out my experience. We make a really good connection there. I've actually been able to express to new enlistees who are thinking of the Marine Corps, educated options with that and why I choose to be in the Marine Corps or not, chose not to be in the Marine Corps, and why my son joined the National Guard. And so there are a few that still probably join, but at the same time, I'm able to express that knowledge and kind of hopefully, set their goals on the path.
Well, it's interesting because in my experience, Marines of any kind are successful in recruiting. Doesn't matter if they were in recruiting before, but when I was in the recruiting battalion, if we hired a Marine, they were going to be successful.
Yes.
And it's that mindset that you have that it's not, well, I've made this many phone calls, so I'm good. It's where have I gotten? What have I accomplished?
Mm-hmm.
And they're just grind through.
Well, and as a Marine, the funny thing is I never really knew what the minimum requirements were. We only knew the maximums. What do I need to do to max my PT test? I never knew minimums. And that was the mindset as almost any Marine that I know is how am I perfect? How do I reach the perfect goal? Not what's the minimum goals. And so I think that's the mentality that a lot of Marines have because of that.
Good deal. So you can speak to the active duty side and you can speak to the reserve component side. And so that's probably a benefit to you, right?
Yes. Yes.
So you've been on for 2 years. How many people have you enlisted?
So 40, I'm trying to do the math. So I had 20 my first year, 27 my second year, and I've got 8 in right now. So 47, 54.
Yeah, so you're humming up 54,
Yep.
55? So
50, yeah, that I've claimed, and I've helped other teammates out too.
So you've been down the trail a little bit, good number in the last 2 years, and you've been in Chiefs 54. So you're one of the top performers in the country. So I have to ask you, why are other recruiters not as successful as you?
Probably my answer to that is I don't really work my schedule. I work my applicant schedule. Um, I know at the end of the day that they will have to be on board with the way the military operates, but right now they are civilians. And so making that transition, I tried to work the schedules that they're available and not the schedule that I'm available. It's probably the biggest thing. I don't have boundaries within, I don't set boundaries to when my work day is or my work days. So I do a lot of work and I probably take care of my applicants a lot before they even enlist. And then when they do enlist, that service does not stop.
Well, and with that, like your personal life and recruiting, um, it sounds to me you're not afraid to make some sacrifices in your personal life to be successful
No,
recruiting.
no, not at all. And my family, and I just educate my family on that. But now there are times I do take time to be with my family and I try to set that. But even at that time, my family understands the importance of my job and how it does impact others' lives and changes them. So they're very understanding of that.
Well, and I like what you said there is I educate my family.
Yes.
So a lot of your peers around the country probably don't engage in that expectation management. Like this is what's going on right now, or like at the beginning of the year or the beginning of a month, that I'm gonna be working this many hours because this is what I'm gonna get accomplished this month. So they don't manage those expectations on the front end. And then it gets really, really challenging, especially, and you've enlisted 55 people, but I bet you've had some people not make it, right?
Yes. Yes.
And so when we're counting that we're going to get X amount of enlistments in a short period of time, but that does not happen, and you got to put more work in, then the family has a different attitude about your work.
I mean, they do, but my family, they're very involved. As far as like, I talk to them very frequently about things. And so they have yet, knock on wood, have yet to get mad at me over anything. So,
Well, I just do think that is a good thing for new and struggling recruiters to pick up on, is making sure that your family has an understanding. This is where I'm at right now. And of course, you're going to vent to your family, but having an understanding is like, I'm making a plan to be successful here. So this is what it's going to take. I think that is very useful. So you've been in your area for a couple of years, and it's the area that you have lived in. It's where you're from.
yes. I'm in Madison County, which is where I was born and raised. And my main location is Eastern Kentucky University, which is actually the college that my degree is from as well. And my two oldest children currently attend college here as well.
So that's a great benefit.
It is. It's a huge benefit.
Can be a double-edged sword if you've lived there your whole life. I grew up in a small town, so I wouldn't want to have been, working out of that area. But what is your approach to develop in your area in the 2 years that you've been a recruiter? Because it's different than just being a citizen in that space. Now you're a significant part of the community.
Correct. The biggest thing is just always trying to make contact with people that I know that have influence over the area, making sure that they remember the role that I have now and educating them on that. Constantly, especially at the college, I stay in contact a lot with professors and trying to get opportunities to get in their classrooms and just do a presentation. If they know that they're kind of short on an assignment day, hey, can I come in and do a presentation? And I've tailored that sometimes to their needs. For instance, if I go to a business and management class, I'll ask, what is your topics right now? And so then I'll tailor something with the guard with that conversation and then tie it back to the guard. And then sometimes I just go in with the National Guard benefits. And then like I go to the Criminal Justice Department, I'll take someone from our MPs. And sometimes I'll take the officers from the MP Corps and over and let them speak to kind of how the connections with what we do and how the criminal justice program can tie in and be a successful career. And the community, again, just getting out. This past year, my daughter did a huge fundraiser to raise food and stuff for one of the local animal shelters, and just staying involved in that and communicating with her. She's got some recognition from the local judges, and just, going in and talking to the judges and kind of telling them about my background a little bit too. And obviously when you go out to eat, I think anybody that you run into needs to learn something about the Guard, even if they're interested or not. I think as long as they're gaining knowledge, it's going to be beneficial to them, at least someone that they know. So I usually always try to bring it up in a positive way.
Well, there's a couple of things there that you mentioned that I think is interesting, because I don't think a lot of campus recruiters are trying to get into the classroom outside of ROTC, if there is an ROTC there. So
there is, and I'm very involved in ROTC as well.
And so getting beyond ROTC, I think that is interesting. If you put your head together and figure out what you could offer, I think that is a good takeaway.
So it is. And another strategy that we use is I went into one of the writing classes. And so the professor said, she introduced me before I spoke, and she goes, I want you to jot down how you feel about the subject now. And then I spoke, I gave the brief about the Guard and what we do and the benefits and how we help the community and, the country. And then at the end, she says, I need you to write down how you feel about this topic now. And then I need you to write a paragraph over how your feelings changed. So yeah, I didn't really go into, in her opinion, it was an assignment. But at the same time, it's a lead generating aspect, because when I walk in, I have them fill out their name and phone number and email address. And I tell them that, I will send them a thank you and try to at least make contact to get feedback for my improvement. And then I'll ask them if they want to join the Guard in that process. And then if they don't, then I just thank them for their day and to please remember me if they know someone that does. So there's different ways to approach it. You can tie it to the professor's curriculum, or you can come in and just do a total benefits of the Guard. And then we get into the dorms a lot and do activities too, a movie night or bring pizza. This year's been a little challenging for that. The cornhole games and stuff from our marketing team, I'll get those and bring them in and stuff like that. So.
Wow, that's another good idea, because I don't hear about that very much either. At MRE, we encourage presence on the college campus, and going in to eat and talking to as many people as possible, knocking on some doors. But those are some really good ideas. In those dorms, I would think, especially the first semester after the first couple of weeks after the school is done doing the events that they do, probably not that many events, and getting free food and free entertainment. That's a pretty good deal. I remember being.
Oh yes, it is.
I remember being a poor college student, so those are good nuggets to take away. So I think I know the answer to this, but I have to ask it. So what is your approach to the daily and weekly prospecting? When I say that, I mean, do you have a measure on yourself? How does your day start? How can your day end? I
probably should improve on that one a little bit, just because I do probably fly at the hips a lot with it. The biggest thing is I try to, I do try to figure out a workout plan throughout the day. I either get up early or I work it in my schedule throughout the day somewhere, because I do think that that's priority for our mental and physical health. But more than anything is just, following up where I left off the previous day. If I haven't followed up with an email or a text to people that I spoke with the previous day, I try to do that just to touch that base one more time with them, even if they're interested. And then obviously you got to check your emails, get in your hot leads and things like that. Usually throughout the day though, I'll try to make a loop through campus and just talk to people, even if it's a professor or another student. I'm always engaged in ROTC. That's where my office is at. So, what are we doing there? And then, like I said, when I go out, when I'm shopping at Walmart, I make sure that I hand out at least 5 business cards, even if I'm buying personal items. I mean, there's really not that's probably one thing I probably should have more written. This is what I'm going to do each day.
Well, why that's interesting to me is because the business card thing's kind of disappeared with technology.
It has.
In people's minds. But 5 business cards in 20 working days in a month is 100. And at the end of the year, that's 1,200 people that have a piece of paper with your name and number and probably your picture on it. Because most recruiters got their picture on it. And that's not insignificant.
No.
It doesn't sound like, well, I didn't do very much, but you handed out 5 business cards. Well, that's kind of a big deal when you think about chipping away, doing it every day. More people are gonna know you. On the prospecting, obviously you're getting enlistments. You are doing enough prospecting, but what is it that says to you that you can go home today, that you've done enough work on the prospecting side?
Well, one, I've tried to at least speak to at least no less than 5 people a day that I have not spoke to before. I mean, I always do make that self-gauge on a minimum. Have I spoke to 5 people that I've not spoke to in the past? And that's kind of where the business card comes into play. I make sure that at least I have talked to 5 people. Sometimes I go above that, but that is my bare minimum. And then I pretty much, is there a packet that needs to be built? Would I knock it out quicker if I stay here at the office, or can I get it done at home and visit with the family while I'm keying it in? That kind of thing.
Well, and I'm glad you said that the way that you said it. It's 5 people that you haven't talked to before.
Yes.
So it's because I'm a big proponent in new business. We always got to be creating new business. So I could say that I talked to someone, but I might have talked to that kid 5 times at school or whatever. And maybe they're out there, maybe they're a P, but it's not somebody new. And if you focus on creating new business every day, 5 really new people, well, that's 25 a week. 25 a week. A lot of them won't be qualified. That's true, but there'll be enough of them that are, and then we can move forward on. So I think that's really good for your peers to grab onto, is new business. And that accountability piece for you, do you go on a gut feeling, or if you got to see that those business cards are gone? How do you hold yourself accountable to that?
Oh, I just make sure that they're gone. If I don't see 5 in one store, then I'll stop, in a convenience store, or another secret sometimes is even at the gas pump, just get gas and walk over to someone there as well. While I'm thinking about this, another funny thing is every time I've put a sign up or business cards inside of a liquor store, I have gotten a call back from that area, and they tell me that that's where they saw my business card or my flyer is at a liquor store. So that's might not be a good recruiting aspect, but it's usually the age. There's a lot of people within that age range, obviously above 21, but I mean, I've gotten a lot of feedback out of that. Yeah.
Well, and I think right now, really successful recruiters that I have been talking to are making more business on the grads right now.
Yes.
Yes. And I do think any place that you can put information up about who you are and what you're about, that's of value, as long as they're not tearing it down and throwing it away. Someone has an opportunity to see it, and obviously someone had an opportunity to call you. So you don't get those 55 enlistments without doing the prospecting. And so those things I think are key to, looking at new recruiters or struggling recruiters listening to this interview, understanding that you got to have a real measure. It doesn't have to be a crazy thing. So on the interviewing and closing side, what is your approach to that? How do you How do you get people to yes?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing with me is a lot of times I let the applicant talk more than me, because I want to understand what their thoughts are and what their goals are. And then one, it lets them gain trust in me because I'm not trying to overpower the conversation. I'm letting them get their own self comfortable and confidence in. And then when I listen to that, then I kind of pick up things that they're interested in. I kind of direct them towards those MOS or career fields. And then once I kind of feel like they're very comfortable with me, then I usually try to ask for the sale. And like, well, when do you want to try to start getting this started, or when are you feel like you're ready? And I'm probably not the best at saying MEPS as much, because to me, MEPS is a foreign word. It's almost, to them, they're like, what is MEPS? What is this? And then once they're comfortable, then I tell them the next steps and what we do. And that's kind of when I start talking about, let's go to MEPS. I've heard a lot of recruiters like, well, when do you want to go to MEPS? When people just start turning away from that because a lot of them don't know what that is. And it's almost like that foreign, it's almost like a disease. What is MEPS? And you can just see that in body language. So I feel like once they've gotten confidence with me, I'm like, so you really serious about this? You want to start making it happen? And then I start explaining the next steps versus just saying, let's go to MEPS. I don't like for them to take the ASVAB until they feel like they're at least had a practice run at it. I use a lot of different practice apps out there.
When do you give it in that process? Are they already
Different times. Sometimes if I've talked to them over the phone, they already aware of that, of the ASVAB, and I'll send them a practice link that we use and say, hey, well, if you want to run through this real quick, just send me the screenshot of it when you're done, so we'll kind of know where you're at. If that's over the phone, if they're in person, I can use the EAST that we have in the office, or I can do the predictor and see what they're at. A lot of times on the college level, if they're on campus, they're already aware of test. And so that one doesn't scare them much as if I throw them a practice one. I really do not like myself to throw them into the seat of the ASVAB without at least having some kind of practice. I do use the PICAT option a lot as well, just because a lot of people have that test anxiety of being in the environment too much in that room. So I use the PICAT a lot. And I explain to them the importance of that, why not to cheat, how to test and things like that, and to get themselves in the testing mind when they start. So when they verify, and I explain, and that's another thing that I've had conversations with people is, if it does roll into the full ASVAB, what to expect and what their options are, because so many people do freak out if it does roll in. And I want them to realize that they can take a break and come back another day to finish it, that they do have that option. Because I've had people in the past that have talked to other recruiters and they were scared when it rolled in, and they end up probably not doing as well as they should have once it rolled into the full ASVAB. And I just allowing them to understand that, I think, has made a big difference.
Well, and the testing part, because we lose a lot of people for ASVAB failures just across the National Guard.
We do. Mm-hmm.
And so being attentive that this is going to be a hurdle. So let's not play that game, I think, is really important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The test is going to come up. It comes up 100% of the time. You got to take it. So
yep. No way around it. At least one way of one form of action.
Yeah, and we got to have the right score in order to get in. So I think that's a good approach. So you prospected it and you got them north and south, and you believe that they're going to be a positive result, but we do lose a lot of people in processing.
True.
So what do you do to ensure that we're going to have a positive trip to MEPS, taking a civilian up and getting a soldier back?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is I walk them through what to expect, when they get to the hotel. I mean, literally, I drag it out pretty much minute by minute, what they're going to go through, what they're going to expect from checking at the hotel to getting up the next morning. Me coming back in 2017, a lot of that's still fresh in my mind. So I can replay the feelings of how they're going to feel, how they're going to be sleepy, how they're going to have to take their shoes off, their belt off to get through security, where they're going to put their bags. And I literally walk them through every step of the way, so there's no surprises. So when they get there, like, yeah, my recruiter told me it was going to be there. So that way they trust my words when they get into the doctor's office a lot more too, because I said, these are the questions the doctor's going to ask you. and you need to be prepared that this is how you answer it, because these are the things that you're going to face if you answer it different than what you're telling me today. And
that's interesting too, because I don't want to get down that trail so we feel uncomfortable, but I do think it's interesting because a lot of times that in that doctor conversation, where we get into trouble is stuff that we can't disprove. You've not talked about it, and then they feel like they got to say something, right? And then they'll say, well, my aunt thought I had scarlet fever when I was 4. And we can't do very much with that. So conversationally, when you're talking about that conversation, you kind of brushed over it. So I want to highlight it is that this is what we've talked about, right? This is what we've talked about. If something new comes up, this is what is going to
happen. Right. And I think just reiterating, like, if you say yes to something right now on here, I've reemphasized from the beginning of the 2807 to when they're processing, you're going to have medical records. Can you provide those medical records? And if you can't, you need to think about that when you're speaking up, and then on your medical records, what else is going to be on there? So you need to think about your yes and no's to how you're going to answer that question. I'm not going to tell you to lie because it's your decision, but I can tell you that you're going to have to prove it to be able to get over that hurdle. And then we have a really good questions that's been developed over years that we use to hot seat, and that includes things like, have you ever been in a car accident? Because that's not on the 2807. And how do you get through that? Do you answer yes or no? Like, how do you feel about that? Did you go to the hospital? Did you get ticketed over it? So we go through those questions as well. Pretty much everything that's been asked that we can think of that's been asked at MEPS is on that list.
Well, and on the processing side, do you handle your applicant the whole way through?
Yes.
Because I know there's recruiters out there that listen to this and it's like, well, my ADOS is sending them up there. And I think it's such a thing.
And very few times, there's going to be a few times that my NCOIC has had to cover down for me. But as far as it has to be me or someone more senior than me. And ADOS, that is my applicant that day, and they are priority 1. And it is not an ADOS position to take my applicant up there because they need to know how important this day is. And I'm not going to push them off. And if it's my NCOIC takes them down, I explain to them that this is my supervisor. I do not let someone lower rank than me take my applicants. No.
That's one of those stomp your feet, this is going to be on the test type things. It's how important it is. They're hard to find, right? They're the people that are qualified are hard to find. Getting the yes is hard to do. And then when we do a substandard job on the processing side and are not with them the whole way, well, we got a good chance to get a negative result, but let's say we even get a positive result. Then we've not been there when they made this awesome choice for their life.
Oh, and no, that's why I want to be there. That's the whole thing is, and then that's when they enlist, and well, they're another part of my family, and I treat them as the same. I'll send them a birthday message, or I'll send them, an anniversary thing. Sometime I'll try to make another contact even after they enlist. Being on campus, I pretty much take care of everybody that enlisted under me state tuition registration. They don't even have to worry about it. And I'll send them a text. Hey, I just sent yours in. You're done. You're submitted. Because they are part of my family now. And if I left that up to someone else to make the sale, are they going to know that I was their recruiter all the way through?
Yeah, and the next question I have is going to be about service after the sale, which kind of answered that. And just kind of want to draw it back because when you're talking about service after the sale, you kind of talk about that from the beginning of the process.
Yes.
Like how you look at it, and how do you look at service after the sale, and what has it done for you, your approach?
Well, I mean, I look at service after sale and one, how did I feel when I felt lost? How did I feel when I felt welcomed? You know, and I relate my feelings to how that person is probably experiencing the process themselves right now. And to know that I'm going to be there for them, you know, and I even tell that in the beginning, I'm your recruiter. As long as I'm in this role and on this earth doing this, I'm going to always be here for you. And they know that. And I pretty much tell them they're part of my family. When I boarded for the SMAG Directors 54, we did best practices, and pretty much at the end of the day, several of the sergeant majors at the end of the day said, so basically, Sergeant Lawson, you're telling me that your enlistees are part of your family. And I'm like, yes, Sergeant Major, they are. I know, I mean, like, I know when they're getting married or if they're changing their degrees or they're changing colleges, they're not just another number to me. And that it takes a lot of work, but it's also very rewarding.
But that's a real relationship.
It is.
And so in that relationship, you feel way more comfortable if you got a friend
Yes.
or an associate or someone that you know
Yes.
could use what we have to offer. It's very unlikely they're going to refer that person to somebody else.
No, and to the point where, you know, I'm on a campus and I am in an ROTC program. So when I first got here, there were soldiers that were not my, you know, enlistees. They were already in the Guard. And it's funny because I get more referrals from that group that I bonded with that were not my enlistees than the biggest poll of anybody. It's kind of weird, you know, how the ones that gained their trust in me when I got here on campus, because I started taking care of them as far as their state tuition assistance as well.
Well, they probably wish you were their recruiter.
Oh, they all say that now. Every one of them. They'll sit and listen to how I would navigate the GI Bill, and I explain to them how it's 36 months and how it turns into 48 months. And, you know, do you need the money now? You know, how the 12 months, if it turns into post 9/11, how only 36 a month is transferable. And they're like, man, I wish my recruiter explained all this to me. Like, I did not understand any of this, you know, and just different things like that that are just beneficial tools. And they'll sit and listen to me walk through applicants with that. And they'll be like, why aren't you my recruiter? Why weren't you there? Why weren't you?
So you're on a campus and you're in a community that you
Yes.
lived in. So what do you, and you're a little bit older, no offense taken, I guarantee I'm older than
No,
you.
it's fine. I'm good with it.
What do you do on social media? How do you use it?
I'm not very strong on that. I mean, I do have some social media, and I try to put things out there when someone enlists or recap a little bit about their history, but I'm not very good with that. But our biggest thing is that I think when they see themselves, even if they've completed basic training, I've tried to develop a few success stories, you know, a few times. And it's funny how they'll come back and like, oh, you posted my picture, you posted my story. You know, I don't know that it's very successful on that, but I'm probably not the best on that one.
Well, I'll just give you a little bit of advice on that, is that the technical part of social media is insignificant. Like, you post things in a certain way at a certain time, that's technical. But the tactical part of social media is exactly the same as what you're doing every day. You're bringing more people into your network. You're making a connection with people. And if they were on that social media platform following you or being your friend, or depending on what the site is, when you put that out there, you will have collected the right eyeballs. So my guess is your normal operation is you've built a pretty good network.
Yes.
Is getting that network onto social media to take advantage of the second and third and fourth generation of their friends,
Yes.
their circles. And I always think it's in recruiting, it's never, never, and never always. So like, you've been really successful without it, and it's probably not going to be a gigantic game changer. But if you do just a little bit here and there, pretty soon you'll have a lot. So What do you think is your secret sauce to be in a Cheese 54 from the great state of Kentucky?
Well, I mean, probably just because I am who I am. I mean, it's funny. My husband would probably say, it's Tabasco sauce or something. I don't know, silly. But it's just everybody becomes part of my family. I think it's just that connection. Everybody probably looks at me as mom. Even the ROTC family knows that I've always got food and snacks in my office. So when they're hungry, this is where they come. If they just need to sit down and talk, this is where they come. If they need a hug, this is where they come. Got a girl that's getting ready to, I was not her recruiter, but I have been through her entire enlistment process. She's even 2 hours away from her hometown, but she come to visit here on campus when she was in high school. I happened to be at MEPS the day she was processing. She wasn't qualified for the MOS that her recruiter had put her in, and she was dead set on being in a certain area. And so I was like, well, let's step back and look at this. And so we came up with a game plan. I helped her pick out a different career. We worked with our command to get her VCN changed. I was the person that put her tuition in. I was the person that she reached out to at basic and after graduation. But anyhow, the short story is she's going to Washington, D.C. for the deployment that we're working at. And she come here all like, what am I going to do? My classes are online. I really volunteered with this, but I don't want to drop out of school. And it's like, okay, take a deep breath. We got this, We walked through a good plan, and then I touched base with her again yesterday just to make sure she's fine. So she's going to stay enrolled as an online student, and everything's going to be fine. But I was the person that she came to. It was just like, I'm that mom for her. And I think that's the biggest thing, is just being like that friend that they know is going to be there and have that solid answer for them, or at least some kind of guidance so they don't feel overwhelmed. So I think my secret sauce is being me, being who I am, being that person that cares.
Well, that's not insignificant, because successful recruiters come in all different sizes and types, and I think that is good advice for a new recruiter. Like, who are you, right? And a lot of our recruiters are pretty young in their military career, and don't have a ton of life experience, but they're close to the target market's age.
Right. They are.
They're just old enough to know better about most stuff, So I do think it is important to be yourself. And I think that authenticity people gravitate to. And if you're a 23-year-old dude recruiting, you're not going to be somebody's mother.
No, but you can be their best friend.
Yeah.
You can be that friend.
And you can be that big brother that maybe has taken a bad turn here and there, and say, well, people make these mistakes, but let's see what we can do with it. Or I've been challenged with that in the past, and this is how I dealt with it. I think being authentic is really important.
And I think the biggest thing too is, if you say you're going to do something, do it. Don't leave promises unfilled. And I think that's another thing. If someone asks me to do something, they know it's done.
Well, the last question I have for you is, like I mentioned before we started, is I do think newer recruiters and struggling recruiters are probably the most likely audience of the podcast and the podcast products. And I'm wondering what your words of wisdom to that population of recruiters would be, or to any recruiter right now.
Well, I mean, probably don't come across over aggressive. Instead of saying, what do you want to know about the Guard? Do you want to join the Guard? You may even ask them, hey, are you in the National Guard? It's more of an open-end question, and they'll be like, no, why? Well, then fall back with, well, you want to join? What do you want to know about the Guard? Or ask them if they've ever heard of the National Guard, or do they know anything about it? And it just kind of is more approachable questions versus that, hey, you want to join the Guard? And everybody's like, no. It's like when you walk into a store and someone says, how can I help you? Your natural response is no. But if you were to say, hey, what project are you working on today? They're going to, oh, you want to know about me? So if you're asking more an opinionated question on their side, they're more able to give you a response versus just shutting you off in the beginning.
Well,
Go
us
ahead.
human beings we're very interested in ourselves. So I think that
Right. And we need to know that as a recruiter, let that person shine, even if it is just a hello for that day for them.
So now this is legitimately my last question because I just thought of something else. So we've been in this pandemic for essentially a year.
Correct.
And so being a campus recruiter, that's had to have a significant impact on you. So how were you able to push through last year and be doing so well this year?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing was, staying in contact with those people that have reached out to me but were not ready, following back up with them, staying in contact with my enlistees and just, hey, have you found anybody that wants to join the Guard? How successful are you? How do you feel about, being in the Guard? And then asking them questions too, like, who would you want to serve with right now if you were, if you needed a friend in the Guard, who would that friend be? And just asking them more questions versus like, hey, go get me referrals, go get me leads. Because then it sounds like they're doing a chore versus like, hey, they're still thinking about me. Who do I want to serve with? Different ways to word it.
Yeah, and I've always thought like nobody knows what a lead is.
Right.
Like a lead is, you know what it is, but just the traditional guards, guardsmen, guardswomen, it's like they have this perception that you want them to bring someone that's already committed and ready to.
Right.
When you're just looking for someone that might be interested.
Right.
So. Well, it's awesome.
Just changing it up.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I said just changing up the wording and then just following through. It's been still, but now on campus, not giving up on the teachers when they're like, well, we're not doing it in person. I'm like, okay, well, you're doing Zoom. Can I jump on a Zoom meeting with you? Or can I have a time when I'm, that I could either come and sit with you and do a Zoom meeting? But it's just been staying on top of it and just having to change things up a lot.
Just having that Marine Corps mentality.
That's it.
Well, it was awesome talking to you. And I really appreciate what you're doing out there. And I do think that's something you have forever, being the top recruiter in your state. So it's something to really be proud of. But I hope that hearing from you will impact a lot of recruiters around the country to know that they can do it. And you're not talking about crazy things that you do to be successful. So
no, I think it's just more having that communication tool is the biggest thing on the family side and the prospecting side.
awesome.
Looking at maybe an area business, map of some sort, either on your phone or whatever, and just making yourself go to a different business a couple times a day or a few times a week. Just broadening your education market.
Good deal. Well, I appreciate your time, and get after it. Get it again. It's just 2 times. Repeat.
Thank you. Appreciate it.